What permits are needed to sell food? Well, I'm actually going to dive into a very extensive list of all kinds of food businesses, explaining to you what permits and licenses you will need in order to operate it, what issuing agency would actually have it, how much the average costs are, and the renewal frequency for each one of them, how many times you have to renew it, and additional information for each one. So if you're looking to sell food online, start a food truck business, sell coffee beans online, or create an e-commerce business selling food, or even create a wholesale food business, this is going to be the first of 4 specific videos. I'm going to break down in 10 permits and 10 different food businesses on each video so you understand how this works. It'll give you a great foundation. If any one of these types of food businesses are some that you're actually looking to start, this will give you a good understanding of what you need from a legal perspective. So let's dive right into it. So number 1, selling food online. So Damien, what kind of licenses and permits are required for that? Now, number 1, you're going to need a cottage food license if it's applicable. If you're starting from home and you live in a state that actually allows you to sell food from home and ship it over state lines, which, believe it or not, many of the laws in some states have actually changed to allow you to do that, you would need a cottage food license if it is applicable to your state. Next one would be a food establishment permit. That would be the commercial aspect of selling food online, meaning that you have some type of commercial building, facility, or even a commercial kitchen, and you're looking to sell that food product you make in that facility online to another customer, a food establishment permit. Next one up, obviously, a business license. Yes, you're going to need to have a business license in order for you to operate an online food business. All right, so who issues these, Damien? Well, state health department would be one of them, or your state's Department of Agriculture, the USDA. The U.S. Department of Agriculture also issues permits and inspections, believe it or not, depending again upon the type of online food business you'll have, or a state health department, which would be your local city or county health department. Now, the average cost for these licenses and permits, they can range, of course, each state, but between around $50 to $500. And then again, that would be for all of them that you would need, but around $50 to $500, depending on the state and the scope of the business. Now, how frequent, Damien, do I need to renew those permits or licenses? Well, there's 2 different ways. Actually, annually for us, even in our commercial kitchen, it's actually once a year for the Department of Agriculture who comes in and inspects us. So that is annually or every 2 years. So it could be once a year or every 2 years, depending on that specific license or permit to sell food online. Now, additional requirements that will fall in line with the type of food business that you're doing when you're selling online food is the FDA registration. Now, this is actually a facility registration that's required for any business that handles, sells, manufactures, or warehouses or distributes food of any kind. It needs to register with the FDA. And if I'm not mistaken, that's actually free. That one, that does not require any type of fee. But the FDA does need to know where your facility is and what the name of it is and all of the business aspects if you're selling also across state lines, okay? That's where the FDA does come into play. Now, if this happens to be a cottage food business, again, from home, your home kitchen inspection, that would be something, if it's applicable. Not every state under cottage food would require an inspection, but you could potentially have that. And keep in mind, I've done my videos here on Marketing Food Online. The FDA does not regulate home kitchens or home-based businesses, okay? That's a different registration that if you need that, that's going to be local within your city or county, okay? Number 2. Food truck businesses. Okay, so this is a mobile food truck business. All right, here are some licenses and permits that would be required for a mobile food truck business. Number 1, of course, the food truck permit. That's something that you get locally within the city or county that you're located in and you're operating the food truck. Next one, mobile vendor permit. Yes, believe it or not, you'll need a mobile vendor permit, and that again will be distributed and issued by the actual city or county. A health department permit, they do inspect food trucks because you are serving food to the public. The health department permit will come into play, and of course, business license as well to operate a food truck legally. Now, also fire department inspection certificate. Now, that's actually before you can even begin to sell. You need to be signed off and approved by the local fire department, ensuring that your equipment works properly, that you also have fire extinguishers on your truck, and that you can pass the fire department inspection. And you'll get a certificate for that. And the issuing agents. Okay, so local city or county health department, your fire department, again, which is a be on the city or county level, and a business licensing office would issue the business license itself. All of this can really get between your city or county that you're in. And keep in mind, while I mentioned the words city or county, because a lot of them vary, like within the area that I'm at, the city of where I live in it would actually issue me my actual business licenses and only health department visits and all that stuff. So anything of that sort would follow under city. Sometimes you just go to the county office. It depends on where you're located, okay? Now, the average cost. So these can actually range between $100 to $1,000 total, depending, of course, on the location and the requirements of those permits. Normally, $1,000 really would be on the high side, but around $100 to $1,000 for them. Now, the bulk of the ones I just told you are annually. You have to renew them. By the way, the frequency of renewal would actually be annually for those. So once a year, that means you'll have to pay that out and renew it. Now, a couple of really side notes of additional requirements: commissary agreement and a mobile food vendor inspection. Okay, so the commissary agreement would be, most states actually require food trucks to be attached to a commissary or commercial kitchen. So you're going to need to have that commercial agreement with the commissary as well. That may actually cost you some additional money. I've heard many states don't require that as far as the fee for it. The renting of the commercial kitchen, yes, but the agreement is part of that contract. Number 3, street food vendors. Okay, so if you're wanting to get into street food vending, which is hugely popular in a lot of like tourist areas and on beaches and such, street food vendors, the licenses and permits required is, number 1, street vendor permit. And normally those can actually be issued in some cases for specific time frames and not necessarily every year annually. Meaning this, like if you wanted to be on a specific street area or location for a weekend or maybe a special event, it would be issued specifically for that time frame. Okay. Food handler's permit, you also need as well. A health department permit for street food vendors, and a business license, of course, to make it completely legal and up and running so you can get your business legally operating. Now, issuing agents, that would be local city and county health department, and business licensing office would issue the business licenses. The average cost for street food vendors is anywhere between $50 to $500, depending on that location and actually the food type that you're selling, believe it or not. Some types of street food vendors resell packaged food, and this is what I wanted to break down really quick. If they sell packaged food, it's actually a different type of licensing and permitting based upon that, or somebody who's actually making food on a street vending cart. So if you happen to be putting food together similar to a food truck, that's going to be a different type of business compared to someone just simply reselling packaged foods. Now, renewal frequencies, most of these, actually all of them, will go for annually, meaning that once a year you'll have to renew these licenses and permits. A couple little side notes, some additional requirements. Location restrictions. If you're a street food vendor, you got to make sure that you can actually legally vend in those locations. There are some location restrictions. And zoning permits. You may need also an additional zoning permit. If you're within a certain zone, whether it be commercial or even residential, that's what that means. You'll end up having some type of zoning permit as well. So number 4, selling at farmers markets. So if maybe you're a home-based food business and you're under the cottage food laws and you want to sell at farmers markets. So what type of licenses and permits, Damien, would I need for that? Well, farmers market vendor permit, that's normally issued by the city or county to allow you to be a market vendor. Cottage food license, if it's actually applicable. Some states require home-based food businesses to actually have a permit or license of some kind. You may need that. And the health department permit for prepared foods. So if you're looking to resell, in a sense, kind of prepackaged or prepared foods, that's something that you would need an additional health department permit for. And again, these would all be issued by the city or county. So that would be the next one up. The issuing agency would be the city or county health department and the farmers market management. So the actual vending permit would come from the farmers market itself. Everyone actually operates differently. They're not the same across the board. So you got to find out the farmers market that you want to attend, what specifically is required to be there. Okay. Now the average cost combined around $30 to maybe $300, depending on the type of product and the location you're going to be vending from. Now, these are seasonally or even annually, which is a little different. Seasonally is sometimes a certain season of the month. For instance, a season of the year, that would be under the fall season, or maybe you have it for the whole summer, or maybe during the winter time. And a couple of these permits are actually annually, which means you'll do them once a year. Now, additional requirements, you definitely want to think about this too, is going to be liability insurance. You may want to get that as well because you're going to, in some cases, need that in order for you to vend or be a farmer's market vendor. And product labeling compliance. Of course, cottage food laws in every state dictate what needs to be on the specific label. So you're going to have product labeling compliance as well. All right, number 5, manufacturing food. This is the big one. So if you're actually looking to get into a much larger scale food business, such as food manufacturing on a bigger scale, this is you want to pay attention to because there is quite a bit that's involved with doing this. First off, right off the bat, licenses and permits. You need a food manufacturing license, a health department permit. You, of course, will need, again, business license to operate, a food safety plan, which is the HACCP plan, FDA registration if you're distributing your food nationally. Then that means, again, you go to the FDA website, you let them know, you have to fill out the form, let them know where your facility is, what it is you're doing, basically the understanding of what your business is as far as holding, distributing, manufacturing, with whatever you're doing with the food, but you're distributing it on a national level. The FDA needs to be aware of that. The issuing agency, so your State Department of Agriculture will come into play, the FDA, and then, of course, local health department. All right, Damien, so what are the costs for these? Well, they average between around $500 to about $2,000, depending on the scale of the production of their food facility. And, of course, all of that varies by state and by city and county, but roughly you get a good idea of about $500 on the low end and $2,000 on the high end. Renewal frequency, annually and biannually. Now, this means that annually would be every year. That's 12 months on these permits and licenses. A couple of them may actually fall into the play of about 6 months. So within a 6 months time frame, you'll be renewing them in that way. Next one, additional requirements. So facility inspections, of course. You're going to have environmental health permits as well. So these are a couple of things that will probably come into play if you want to start manufacturing food. All right, number 6, wholesale foods. So let's say you want to just buy foods that are already pre-made, sell them online, maybe through your website, like a grocery store in a sense, but you want to start wholesaling foods. Now, licenses and permits required. Wholesale food dealer permit, food distributor license, health department permit, business license, and an FDA registration. Again, that is in regards to distributing food on a national level from East Coast to West Coast. The FDA needs to know. All right, so who is the issuing agents? Where do I get these from, Damien? So the State Department of Agriculture would be one, your FDA would be another, and then, of course, local health department. The cost, these are about $250, around $1,500, depending on the scope of the business, of course. Renewal frequency, annually, and, of course, again, semi-annually, which would be every 6 months to 12 months. Some additional requirements you got to think about as well: compliance with good manufacturing practices, the GMP as it's known, and a facility inspection. All right, so general information. Let me give you just to really break off really quick. For all food businesses, insurance is a must. I know we haven't talked about that as far as the permits and licenses because it's a little bit different, but general liability insurance and product liability insurance are often required for pretty much any of these food businesses. And I highly recommend you do that because you need to separate yourself personally from the business you're going to create, and that would be like an LLC. But again, with an LLC, insurance is another blanket of coverage to help. Food safety certification, yes. Food handler certification or a ServSafe certification may be needed as well or required for some of these types of food businesses. Labeling requirements. Make sure that if you're selling packaged food products, proper labeling of packaged goods, including ingredients and allergens, of course, is mandatory. Zoning and location permits. Specific zoning permits may be required depending on the business location and the type. Now, here's some tips to kind of navigate the licenses and permits. Check your local requirements. Licenses and permits can vary widely by the city and county and even the state level. So double check where you live, okay? Renewal calendar, keep track of the renewal dates to avoid any fines or business interruptions. I actually can attest to that. There was, when we first started, a couple of permits here and there that I just keep forgetting about to renew, and they do pack on fines, trust me. So fines will happen. Next up, consult local agencies. You can contact your local health department, ask them any question that you need to get clarified, and business licensing offices for detailed requirements is needed. All right, let's hop back into this list and wrap up number 10. So number 7, catering businesses. So licenses and permits required for catering. Well, you got to get a catering license, of course. Health department permit, business license, commercial kitchen permit if you're preparing food off-site. So that is something you'll need. Issuing agent, well, that's a local city or county health department and business licensing office. How much does this cost, Damien? So this was around $100 to another $1,500, depending on the location and the type of catering business you're doing. Renewal frequency, these are normally around annually. So these are going to be every year, once a year. Additional requirements, food safety certification, of course, and liability insurance. Number 8, meal prep business. All right, so if you're looking to get into meal prep business, what are you going to need legally from the permit and license perspective? So you're going to need a meal preparation permit, health department permit, business license. These are local agencies, would be your health department and business licensing office within your city or county. Cost, this is about $100 to $500 depending on location. It shouldn't really exceed more than $500 for this type of business. These are mostly also annual, so you want to renew these licenses and permits annually. Now, some additional requirements that may fall in play is commercial kitchen access and nutritional labeling. If providing specific dietary information for a meal prep business, you definitely need to have that. All right, number 9, personal chef service. Well, maybe you love to cook and you want to start a chef business and you want to be a personal chef. There's actually a lot of personal chefs who make 6 figures or more with all kinds of events that they go to and get paid very, very well for their services. Licenses and permits required: personal chef license, business license, and a food handler's permit. So let's see, health department and the business licensing office would be the agencies that would issue these. The cost, between about $50 to $300 depending on location.